I'm Ryan Betson.
I'm Max Cooper.
And I'm Paul James.
This is More the Players, the Pop Culturist PlayStation Podcast Extra. Today, we are talking Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Right off the bat, big thank you to the team over at PlayStation Australia for providing all of us a review code of Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Let's kick things off. Let's keep it simple. I'm directing traffic on the P2 video and the PopC video. This is fun. Let's get our overall impressions. Padge, because you're the guest on this one, but not the other one, you get to go first. What's your thoughts on Spoods 2?
This is certainly a weird one, doing this for two different shows at the same time. But I mean, holy shit, it's pretty much everything I wanted it to be from a sequel. And I say like a core sequel because Miles Morales' spin-off. I don't know, like pre-sequel. Let's go down that path. We'll go down the Borderlands pre-sequel path.
DLC.
It's 1.5.
Yeah. But this is like the real sequel, and it's everything I wanted to be. The villains are perfectly chosen. The story goes off in directions that are expected and unexpected. They deliver everything really, except for tip-top performance. But we'll get to that later.
Ooh, spoilers. Actually, we can talk about that one now. It's not spoilers. Max, about yourself.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Paul here. So it went expectedly. It's a great follow-on from the original Marvel Spider-Man. They hit some fantastic story beats through this one as well, and they just kind of everything that I had a problem with the first one was rectified here, and they just kind of more more of the same, but kind of cranked it up a little bit. There was some nice quality of life improvements in this one over the first one that really got me going.
Yeah, and I would agree with you both as well. I think it's fantastic. Is it perfect? Sadly not. It was those performances. There are some performance issues that kind of give it a little bit of grief, but from a story perspective, I really dug it. It was great. It had me crying a couple times, but I'm a big old hot mess. It looked brilliant at a bunch of times. There are some moments where I'm like, ew, that looks gooey, and makes me uncomfortable. But yeah, look, for me, I'm very aware that I'm going to come into this review, at least my overall impressions of it, a little bit biased, as I've been very lucky that I've been able to share this with my son. So my son is 6, and he is a uber Spider-Man fan, like to the nth degree, and he has been the happiest he's ever been, knowing that he gets to play Spider-Man 2 ahead of everyone at school. And he didn't have to sign an NDA, but I was like, hey, dude, you don't say a goddamn that.
The old friend DA.
Yeah, I was like,
Dad DA.
Yeah, I was like, mate, this is like dad son secret stuff, right? You can't tell anyone. And he's kept it zipped. And he rang me the other day and was like, oh, I wanted to, but I didn't tell anyone. I can't wait to tell him. So yeah, for me, like it sits a little different knowing that I got to experience that with him, from front to back. So we finished it together, which was lovely. We recorded a Let's Play, which goes up in a couple of days, where he did the whole opening section all by himself and sort of watching his cogs turn and just this smile across his face. He also gifted him the Spider-Man 2 controller as well. So watching it all, it was just very incredibly proud dad moment. And everyone knows my love for like God of War and good dad moments. So.
God, his mind's going to be blown when he gets his Venom statue in a couple of days.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't know.
All 19 inches of Venom.
He doesn't know about 19 inches of Venom yet, but he will. Yeah.
It's a bold choice of
words. Alrighty, let's get into it. So let's kick things off with the story of the game. As with most PlayStation first-party titles, it is action-adventure, which means it's very story-driven, and then we'll get into the performance-y things later. So the events of this game essentially kick off not instantly after the events of Miles Morales, but shortly after. So
fitting distance.
They're not like in their 30s now or anything. Miles is just about to finish school. Peter's doing Peter things. MJ's doing MJ things. Yeah. And shit happens. And chaos ensues. I was being very careful because obviously with it being such a story-heavy game, there are things we do and don't want to discuss. So we think about things that are mentioned in the trailer. So we see Kraven with his desire to head to New York to fight the biggest fight, to the best hunt, I think he refers to as the hunt primarily. Yep. Harry Osborn is back. Who else do we see? The trailer that went up this morning. You get to see the villains of Sandman and Mr. Negative, and the Lizards. It's a lot of cool stuff on story, but once again, we won't get too deep into the story, not to spoil anything too much. But
we've got a spoiler cast coming for that for people to enjoy.
Get excited. Now, for you two, are there any beats that that are important that I may have missed that don't spoil anything?
Go on, Max.
I don't think so. I think you've covered it pretty well, actually. I don't think there's anything you haven't hit that wouldn't be classified as a spoiler.
That's an absolute list of chaos, but I'm glad it hit all the beats. So that's good.
For me, it's actually some of the side stuff. Which is not necessarily going to, and you've obviously spoken about your tiers on those, and it's some of those that I don't know if there's any core main mission stuff that triggered you, but certainly some of the side ones, there's some really impactful stuff from what you can access through the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man app, and there's about 6 core kind of mission plot lines that are based on that, but even just some of the I guess the larger arced mini narratives within the whole thing. So I mean, you touched on Sandman, who's not really been part of any pre-release stuff until super recently.
Yeah.
And he's kind of, we can safely say this, he's kind of that opening encounter that you deal with, and it's where they tutorialize a lot of stuff and whatnot. But then a whole narrative arc spins off of that encounter that can play out through the remainder of the game. So like they create stuff around that. And there's a whole bunch of other stories that loop in with key characters and others that are really on the periphery the whole time. And they're really fascinating. So, and as I've alluded to there, some tearjerkers as well.
Yeah. So for me, a lot of the story beats that are prevalent in this game is obviously balance, in terms of balancing, all the things you do at once to sort of like what's important and what isn't. The power of family, which is a given when it comes to Spider-Man. But it also hits about the idea of love and friendship and stemming into that what's important and what isn't, and mixed with a lot of feeling of what to hold on to, what to let go, and how to deal with that, like grief and trauma, which is very prevalent in a lot of PlayStation's first parties, is massive in this as well, as we deal heavily with the trauma of Miles, of Peter, and other characters throughout the game. So, like,
spoilers for everyone, the Spider-Man 3 game, when it comes out, Miles and Peter are both going to be dads, and they're going to be escorting their children through the world.
But they're going to go into like a different
to dispose of MJ's ashes.
Yeah, they're going to go into the DC universe. Change mythologies for funsies. But yeah, so for me, a lot of those are beats that I really care for, and therefore, by playing the game, it instantly hooked me in. When you start talking about things like trauma and dealing with it, and love and loss and all the things that make my emo little heart happy, when you get stories that hit them as well, I get super invested, and I'm super in. And especially when there's a lot of discussions around parent and child relations, is always a big part for me.
Pull no punches in terms of the core plot too. Like, they're not necessarily going for the same sort of heavy emotional beats, in the sort of ways we were just discussing, but even in terms of some of the, like, those big plot points, and, there's a lot of villains that are thrown in this game, and there's
way more than I expected, by the way.
And, returning and new for the franchise, and for the game universe anyway. But the way some come and specifically go,
check out that spoiler chat, because holy shit.
I didn't expect him to kind of go as dark, I guess, as they did in this game as well.
Yeah. Max, you've been
and maybe with Venom coming into the mix, and obviously we know Venom's there, like, we expect those little things a bit, but they probably went further than I expected.
It's interesting, because a lot of the, obviously being a Spider-Man game and you playing as both Spider-Man and Miles, it's not just about, it's a lot of it is about their journey of who they want to be and what kind of hero they want to be. But it's not just those two who are actually going through that story. A lot of the villains themselves are also dealing with that exact same thing, like, who am I, who do I want to be, and how do I actually want to live my life after all this goes down. So it was a really interesting balance between getting the feeling of the two protagonists here versus how the villains themselves are also going through the exact same thing, trying to work out what it is how they want to move forward from this after the fact. So it was interesting.
But it's not in a Last of Us Part 2 like, hey, you should see the evils, and they're not that evil. It's all about perspective. Like, it's not quite like on the nose as Last of Us Part 2 as an example, but their ability to tell this dual narrative, especially around the idea of Miles and Peter and how they sort of come together, while also how their worlds are separate but different, but similar, but cross. And it's very interesting because it is kind of like not like a master and a mentor. It is kind of like there are equals, but when, as we see in the trailers, as Peter gets sort of taken over by the symbiote and gives him, as we all know from the any Venom and or symbiote story used in Spider-Man, how it does tend to negatively impact him as an individual.
The classic Spider-Man 3.
Classic Spider-Man 3. So it was kind of cool to see Miles then have to step up and essentially mature and become more of an adult, which is it makes sense from the time span as it's just finishing high school, but also with Spider-Man always being, predominantly about a story of a hero in their teens and what it's like to grow up with that responsibility, to sort of hit it here as well. But not through the great power comes great responsibility of Peter, but through Miles, I think is great. And we also see the sort of the fleshed out dynamics of his family as well. So as a true sequel should, or like any season 2 of a TV show, all the characters are established. Now we can flesh them all out, which I really enjoyed. And because obviously I'm a big drama, like I love my good drama TV, like character building stuff. Bless you. So like, you know, it's how to see all these characters interact and how they come together and like what they agree on, what they disagree on, and like those little nuances, and that's tons of fun for me. But with that, these story beats would not deliver as well if it wasn't for the performances. Max, how did you find the performances that we saw in Marvel Spider-Man 2?
The performances are fantastic. I'm still not a fan of Peter's new face.
It's jarring. It's jarring. Because obviously playing 2018, we saw the original very heavy eyebrowed face, which kind of looks a lot like Padge, just saying. So now it looks like Tom Holland, which is not Padge, which is very
not as good looking.
Frustrating. Yeah, not at all.
You know, everyone did a really fantastic job playing their roles this time around. And like you said, like you just explained, because the characters were already introduced to us, getting to, you know, fleshing them out, going deeper than they did before, they kind of really portray that quite well. There's a few really good story beats where you can kind of you can feel it. They're definitely, you know, doing their job well.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, they certainly extracted more emotionally than I'd expected from a Spider-Man game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's a big fan of that. Like, if you can get your, like, you know, the little bit of your expectations subverted, because like from a story perspective, it does hit a lot of the standard beats of a superhero movie or a comic book. You know, like this, and then you hit, you know, building. Then you get into your turmoil of Act 2, big problems at the end of Act 2, resolution. But like, you know, even the set pieces and everything about them do have that very similar structural beat, but I don't think that's sort of a detriment because you know what you're getting into. But yeah, how the performances delivered that narrative, I think, is something that really sets this apart, even from Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales, because as we said, everything's been established and nailed. What about you, Padge? What's your thoughts on this?
Oh, look, it's really hard to wade through at the moment, because obviously there's a lot of things we can't say. Later date, I guess. Look, yeah, I mean, everything's paced so well. The beats that they drop, really strategically done in terms of creating a great narrative, but also tugging on all the right heartstrings. They thrust you in and out of kind of a more aggressive sort of gameplay approach to something that's, I guess, more rooted in what we kind of know from and expect from Spider-Man characters. Like they extract these feelings through both the cinematics and the story and the cutscenes and everything they do there, but also through the way that we play the game as well.
Because there are a couple characters that you sort of get to experience their vision of the world, and how the game changes to reflect that is from a storytelling perspective is fascinating. And I really like that, because I think, once again, we're looking at the dichotomy between Peter and Miles. You're seeing how they see the world differently, how they just tackle their villains differently. And it's cool to see other spaces where you can see the world differently. So this may irk some people, but you do get to play sometime as Mary Jane in this one as well. However, unlike
it's not a stealth mission.
2018, it's not a stealth mission. It almost becomes a first-person shooter for a hot minute. It's kind of cool. So they really took the criticisms of some of those parts and went, oh, well, then how do we improve that for this? You still get them, but they're better. Even in the same way that when you do all the, the little, you don't have to do the pipe puzzles or anything as much anymore, which is thank Christ. But even how they sort of weave those puzzle elements into the overall story, I feel they're a little different as well. But yeah, we won't touch upon it here because it's a great side story, but we'll touch upon it in the spoiler discussion. Yeah, there are genuinely some side stories which moved me to deeply. And I'll go into details as to why, but in that chat. But I'm a big softie, always have, always will be, and it's no surprise that I was at least twice at least, and that's the ones I'm just remembering off the top of my head. But yeah, performances across the board are really great. I think the performance driven by Yuri, whose last name I can never pronounce.
Lowenthal.
Thank you. So for Peter, I think because he has to deliver a very different Peter in that, he has to be that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that does care and, it does have to own up to some of the mistakes that he has made or is making, to sort of shift between that shitty symbiote Peter and regular Peter's tons of fun. And even with Miles, the actor whose name escapes me, even watching them sort of grow and mature, sort of, even just their tone and their delivery at the start, it does have that kind of a childlikeness to it. But as you progress throughout the story, you start to see, how they look at the world, how they communicate about the world, and even how they communicate to individuals in that space, shows that they are going through this little, coming of age almost. And I personally dig this shit out. I love a good coming of age story. Even Mary Jane as well, she's given enough to sort of flesh out who she is, not in a really in-depth way, but enough to sort of, once again, how all these things fit together. Even the likes of Rio, which is Miles' mum, she's weirdly an important character in this, more than you think she should be, but in a good way. Yeah, and overall, I dig the story a lot. There wasn't any moments where I felt that the story was sort of dipping or losing. I felt it kept a pretty good, consistent beat in terms of the ups and downs of it all. There were moments where you kind of went, hey, just go explore the city. However, I felt there was less of those moments in this compared to 2018.
Very much so.
Yeah. So it does keep that pace moving forward, because the game itself is, oh shit, how many hours? I think I finished in about 25 hours. However, because I was playing with my son, when he went back to his mum's, I then had to go take that save file and then just grind a bunch, because he chose to put all the tech, all the points, all the parts into simply cosmetic costumes, which led me to get my shit kicked in all the time, because he did nothing into the skills, into the gadgets. I was like, I'm gonna have to grind a whole lot to get this worked out. So how long did you guys take to get this done? As Max, I can see the flashing of light in Max's face. He's pulling up the PS5 now to check.
Yeah.
Well, I guess while Max is fighting that data then, for me, and this is inclusive of the plat,
oh, I've got the plat
hours.
too. So mine's probably, how was yours, sorry?
31.
Yeah, mine was about 35, I think, to get the plat.
Jeez, you're just not very good, are you?
Fucking children.
Okay, well, I didn't get the plat. I'm sitting about
you're even worse
and complete. So I kind of just did the story and collected all the one lot of collectibles, and I think it took me about 18 hours.
Yeah. Which makes me personally very happy, because I don't have time for long ass games. I'm an old man, so a good 20 hours, a good tight 20 hours was dope, and then to because we were very, very lucky in the lead time on this, might I add. So
Very generous.
To be able to spend that time to then just like pick it all off and finish it all up. We finished it all up to get the plat was brilliant. It does feel bizarre to like have played it, completed it, and got the plat like a week out. That was really bizarre, knowing that I've got to go pick up the statue in a couple of days and be like,
now what do I do?
no, the statue's pretty cool.
What are you going to do with those 19 inches?
Yeah, that's personal, Punch. But let's talk about that, though. As you mentioned, some of the things that have changed from the first is the world.
Right.
The map itself is larger. We're getting to dick about out. Yeah,
Queens. Queens has been added.
Outside of Manhattan, we're now in Queens. We're now in Brooklyn. Padge, how did you find these extra areas? Because I found myself mostly hanging out in Manhattan anyway, and then obviously the traversal, which is the wingsuit that allows to make these less.
Yeah, the web wings.
Yeah, the less built up areas a lot more
accessible.
Traversable.
I mean, look, I'm all for it. Like they added some. Like it's a nice diverse part. Obviously, it's not nearly as built up as Manhattan itself, and even a lot of the neighboring portions of the core 2018 map that we got to play with. So I was all about what they added, and yeah, the fact that the whole world is so easily accessed through the web wings and the boost mechanics that are kind of, I guess, how they justify those is completely beyond me. But it's a video game, so who cares? Those little boost rings that you can then fly through that ramp up your speed and. Geez, it's a good feeling when you hit the end of those and you can go rocketing up, get some serious height, take in all the sights, and then come tearing back down again. It's really pretty exhilarating, actually, to kind of explore the world. I certainly found myself, outside of when I got to that really, I guess, ugly point at the end of the game where I'm, ticking off things to get the plat, and I'm trying to ping around the map as quickly as I can. The rest of the time, I felt no temptation at all to fast travel places. I was very happy to just take flight and swing my way to wherever it is I need to go. Everything felt like it was a minute away.
Completely agree. And then so you can add that little extra web boost where you pull yourself in and you rocket yourself either forward.
That's a good one.
It just made even heading over that water a lot better, because now you can kind of sit in the water. Previously it's like where now you can kind of skim across it and still able to whip yourself up and get that distance. But yeah, it'd be interesting now if I was to go back to Miles Morales or 2018 Spider-Man, like without the web glider.
Ew, it's so slow.
I'd be like, ooh, how would this go? Because once again, the beauty of the SSD allegedly is you are whipping through this city. Like you can feel that speed. Are you with that, Max? Did you feel that you are moving faster? We're taking advantage of that SSD?
I predominantly use the web wings to get around because there are sections of the city that are just, not non-web compliant in the sense that there's just no tall buildings. Like, when you get into the suburbs or going across Central Park, for instance, it's a pain in the ass. But yeah, the addition of the web wings, like you said, those wind tunnels, which I found hilarious because you can clearly see which direction the wind's going, but it doesn't matter which way you go through it. It'll just boost you. It's fine.
It just turns.
It'll just turn to always give you the favorable wind.
Heads up, slipstreams like that are very common in highly built up areas, by the way. Not you. I don't know whether they could rocket. I don't know whether they could rocket a man, but there you go.
Then obviously, as Paul mentioned, at the end of those slipstream tunnels, you get that boost. But they also exist on the rooftops of most buildings. You'll see like the steam vents just releasing, and you can just fly into those, and you get those extra boosts. And then just flying up, diving down, doing loop the loops on the web slings before you fling yourself off in a different direction. They've really increased what was already there in the original Marvel Spider-Man to the feeling that it does feel a lot more fluid, a lot faster, a lot more fluid mainly. It was a really great addition. But just to continue on with that, did any of you turn on fall damage?
No, no.
I didn't even check the settings. I'll admit I didn't check the settings. I didn't realize fall damage is a thing. That's bad news for me.
It's off by default.
Good.
It's opt in.
So is it just falling, or like if you were to like whoosh and like whack into a wall, would that like wreck your day? Because that would be dead all the time if it was just wall damage.
My understanding is it's fall damage, not wall
that
damage. But who knows?
But one of the things you mentioned there is sort of the scale that comes with expanding this map. I felt that whether it be the power of the PS5, I'm not too sure. When you do get higher, you get that verticality. Like, I feel like the draw distance in this is just fucked in the best way. Like, you look and you can just see something everywhere. It doesn't feel like it just stops you. Like, you look and you go, this place is massive. And not in quite like a, Zelda, I could go to that mountain. Let's say you're like, I could kind of go anywhere within this city. And it all looks crisp as shit. There are moments where it looks fantastic as you come up and you just sort of see, and there's not like a haziness in the distance or anything. So I guess that's a seamless transition into the performance-y side of things. From a visual standpoint, Padge, how do you think?
On the visual side, I got that flywire door effect a bit, which was weird considering I wasn't in a VR headset. But like, I don't even know.
A little bit of artifacting around the edge, sort of thing. Okay.
Not even just around the edge. I think there was some weird effects going on there that I wasn't all about. There's obviously some technical stuff, and we'll deal with that shortly. But really, when it came to the visuals, yes, I haven't made the Peter adjustment, but I think that's on me at the end of the day. And any of us really, like, I think we just kind of have to accept this is who it is, and eventually that penny will drop at some point, I presume. But for now, still just doesn't quite look right. But yeah, I think that was really kind of the main visual thing for me, was just that kind of flywire door effect that I wasn't crazy about. And I'm sure we'll get fixed soon enough. But the other concerns were all technical.
Did you have any flywire door moments?
No, I just had some horrendous frame drops at the back end of the story.
Wow.
Yeah, right. None of that.
See, I did. Yeah, from a visual perspective, I had no real issue. I thought the game looked fantastic. Now, it could just be my very lovely TV, but
some character models were way better than others.
There are 100% moments where they're like, "This is a
vision of resources."
You can tell who the main characters are.
This is the scene you have to pay attention to because it looks immaculate. But then everything else is kind of fine. Like, there was one time where I was trying to find a particular thing for a trophy, and for some reason the character models didn't come in. So there's those two putty looking men standing outside of this area. I'm like, that's bizarre. And then
if we're going to bundle that into if we're going to bundle that into visuals, I was thinking more of these things as a technical sort of flaw. But at the same time, my Miles became a little cube.
Yeah.
Swinging through the sky, which was great.
I had a few where Miles's legs became flipped around and his knees went the wrong way. that was amusing.
So then a lot of these are all pre-day one patch, obviously.
Yeah.
You would certainly hope a lot of these things are going to be resolved. We've finished it now. I'm probably not going to go back. But it's one of those challenges that we face. But from a visual standpoint, I thought the game looked fantastic. As mentioned, the render distance, felt massive. Everything felt crystal clean and sharp. And as you're swinging through the city at what feels like an increased pace, the motion blur is lovely. I didn't have any sort of feeling like you're running at a lower frame rate. It feels a little jittery. The symbiote suit.
How long did you stay in quality mode before you swapped it to performance?
I was performance straight up.
Okay.
Yeah, straight up, because I wanted that good frames. When you're whipping your ass around the city, I don't want 30 frames. I want the best I can get.
Whipping your ass.
Whipping. But yeah, so for me, the thing that was the most interesting, and now you've all seen this in the trailers, so no spoilers, of course, when it comes to the transition from Peter to the symbiote, because it comes on in a thread-like structure, and then it kind of oozes out into a more consistent suit, which is very gross because it looks very tentacly and it's very juicy looking. And that's, I think, the best way to explain it. Whether it be the ray tracing effects that they're using here and the way they've had of the suit refract light, it just looks moist and wet all the time. And it's confronting.
It's almost like it's a living thing.
Yeah. Like, which is good because that's what you want it to do. And like, every time Venom opens his jaw and you got the honking teeth and the saliva, and it all looks incredible. Like those trailers that you see, like the launch trailer, which has it is game footage. Like that's what it looks like. There are moments where cutscenes look that insane, and it's hard to. I know it's hard to comprehend, but it does look that good, right? Kraven looks fantastic, like his big jacket and his little like mane, for lack of a better word, like all the little individual hairs on it look sick. Mary Jane looks rad. I don't know what this is. Now, this is not intending to this to be a racist sentence, but black people look really good in high definition, like ultra. Like Miles looked fantastic, and like there are moments where they're having these sort of big emotive scenes, like you're seeing the minor details in like Peter's face, like a roll of a tear, and you're like, oh shit, and it's just. The mocap on this and the performance from the individuals really brings a lot of that emotion across, which huge win on that. I think that's absolutely fantastic. But so from a technical standpoint, in the 45 minutes opening gameplay, let's play with my son, he managed to crash the game twice. He got stuck in geometry.
Did you keep it in your cut? You keep it in the final cut?
In the cut. It's part of the fun.
Good.
There was one, he got stuck in a wall. I got stuck in a bridge later on in the game. And then he just kind of got stuck in the ground and it like soft froze. But this was like literally the day that we got it. So this is like pre day zero patch. So
2.5, 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah. So I haven't had any issues since. But
I've had crashes since.
Go.
My final day of play as I was cleaning stuff up, which is far more recent. Still having some of those issues. So hopefully a lot of it's kind of cleaned up with day one and subsequent patches, but it's still got its flaws even at this kind of launch window point.
I had no crashes, but there was a few times where I got to points where, you're supposed to interact with certain objects and the objects just weren't interactable. So I had to restart from a checkpoint and go back in and like reboot it. But I never had any like hard crashes where the game shut itself off and anything like that.
So one thing, like
a couple of both.
Because from memory, I think it was when the PS5 came out, there were some people that just couldn't play Miles Morales for some reason. Like it just hard crashed their consoles, or was it Demon Souls? One of the
I heard a lot of that with Returnal actually.
No, Returnal. So my apologies. Returnal was the one. People like you, whether it downloaded or discs, just wouldn't work.
PlayStation didn't like it for some reason.
Yeah, no, which is weird. Are there any beats that we haven't hit? Or, to be shameless, are there any like little one-liners you want to throw in just to see maybe we make ourselves a little accolades trailer, I'm saying?
I said it in my review. That what Insomniac is building with these games is, in my opinion, and don't get me wrong, I'm not the most, I haven't consumed the most Spider-Man content in the world, but might be the best Spider-Man content I've ever consumed. Mm-hmm. Across games, comics, TV, film, full stop.
He turns around and he's like they're the only Marvel
and then
thing.
next week
the
he's
only
like,
Spider-Man thing.
Did you watch it? Have you seen Into the Spider-Verse? This is incredible.
And that is like right up there, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, Insomniac have done such a fantastic job over the last few years with both Spider-Man and Miles Morales, and they're just continuing to up their game every time.
Yeah, Wolverine will be out in like 2 weeks and trump everything.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
Schnicked.
To put it simply, I don't know how Insomniac Games can deliver this exceptional quality every time. It's as simple as that. I don't know how they do it. Because like they are the most frequent release studio and now under the first party platform. Each of them are brilliant. Like, yes, we've had some niggles, but like, that feels like a racist word, but it isn't. There are these little hiccups that we experience, but it impressively doesn't take away from the overall experience. Like,
they're not releasing words on a yellow backdrop every other month.
Yeah, there was no apology.png, which I really appreciate. But it is a must play for your PS5. It's a standout title. Like if you have a PS5, you need to buy Spider-Man 2. Like whether it be, you know, you've never played Spider-Man 1, you've never played Miles, just get it, get all three, have the best fucking weekend of your life. You know, from a performance standpoint, it killed it overall. It looked utterly insane. As you mentioned before, Padge, I didn't think I could feel so much from a Spider-Man superhero characters or a Spider-Man game. Like, it's really bizarre. Just sort of as I'm sitting there like bawling and having to explain to my son why he's like, Dad, are you crying? And I'm like, yeah. And then I had to explain. He's like, and then he's like, so once I explained the nuances of it, you could sort of see it moving him as well. But yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Now, we don't do scores on for the players, but Padge, you do over at player2.net.au, Metacritic approved. What would you be giving Marvel Spider-Man 2?
Look, we have the letter grade system, which complicates things multiple different ways. But anyway, so I gave it an A-. That equates to like a 91 on Metacritic. So the game is exceptional. And like we've kind of touched on, I think through everything really said that the only hang-ups are these visual and technical flaws that the game has. And so for many people, by the time the game comes out, a lot of that will be cleaned up. And certainly within the subsequent weeks, I'd imagine most of it disappears.
Speaking of subsequent subtitles, hot mess sometimes. Don't know why. Just super,
really? Oh, actually, yeah. Sorry, the occasional delay on those.
Yeah.
Delay. Some of them just didn't even like. I got like 4 lines of dialogue in advance sometimes. I'm just like, this is bizarre.
Spoilers.
And it was the big spoilers. It's like Spider-Man's Peter Parker, and at that point he hadn't taken his mask off. I wasn't ready for the spoiler. It was a hot mess. Max, as mentioned, we don't score, but like for the fun of it, if we were to score it, where would you sit?
Yeah, look, it'd be a 90 for me. If we would score it out of 100, it'd be a 90. 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat myself. I'm looking like a 9.5, like 9.5, I guess, because it's an overall, the experience is absolutely fantastic. Small little hiccups, but they impressively, whether it's just because I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, who knows, it never really detracted from the overall experience for me. These little things like, oh, this is still fantastic. But beautiful. But that does bring us to the end. Let us know what you are most excited for Marvel Spider-Man 2. It does come out on October 20th on your PlayStation 5. There is a spoiler review coming. There is Let's Plays coming. Padge, for yourself over at Player 2, what do you have coming for Marvel Spider-Man 2?
So I guess at the same time that this goes live, there'll be a full video review that people can go check out as well. There's, I guess, the video version of my written review that people should go and absolutely check out because I worked on that. There's a YouTube Shorts version as well that's hitting YouTube Shorts, Instagram, TikTok, and the like. Getting out on those social platforms, so go check out all that stuff as well. And yeah, the written review. There'll be unboxings for the 19 inches of Venom.
Oh yeah.
See what I do.
Oh, yeah.
See what I do with those 19 inches on camera.
I'm going to compare it to
you need OnlyFans to access it.
Honestly, the size of my head, just because I think the head is I have a huge head. It's probably a good size in comparison.
Go check out my OnlyFans to see what I do with that 19 inches.
While we're there, Padge, give yourself the spiel.
Oh, I mean, people should go and check out all the Player 2 content. Player2.net.au, youtube.com/player2netau, all the socials. Go check all those things. And Paul James Games on Twitter for myself. I'm not going to embrace this X bullshit that you guys stick with.
Nah. I'm going to do the quick one because it takes too long. If you want to follow Max and myself on socials, I'm at HaggardMC, HEGGARDMC. Max is BPossessed101. Too many letters, it's above his head. If you enjoyed what we had to say here about Marvel Spider-Man 2 and you want to hear us talk more PlayStation, you can every Monday morning at 8 a.m. on your podcast services, 9 a.m. on the YouTube, our weekly PlayStation-centered podcast called For the Players, the PopC PlayStation podcast. It's a ripper show that talks about the Big Blue brand, all the games that come to it, or the news that's relevant to it, all full of hopefully entertaining personalities, which is sometimes Max. It's majority Max and me, and sometimes Padge. I'm still pushing for it to Padge to be the third, and we'll get there.
Look, he's doing it now on Player 2 content at the same time.
Right, yeah. Hey, Hughesy, you want a PlayStation podcast? All right, let's wrap it up. Once again, big thank you to the team over at PlayStation Australia for providing us the review code for this. I personally, just to get a little bit reflective again, it means a lot. There's not a lot of PlayStation content creators specifically here in Australia, and we are very lucky to still be involved in that space and to receive this title so early in the
You got it before me, you bastards.
which is insane. To even be considered in the same conversation as these Metacritic approved big dudes with the likes of Press Start, well paid Player 2. We can't thank PlayStation Australia enough. And then of course being able to share this with my son, and I feel that this is what I got to experience with him and play the game front to back and make some content with him. That is truly a memory that he will have for forever. And as my son doesn't live with me, I don't get to see him as much as I'd love to. So for me, it's very important that I make the best memories that I can when I'm with him. So big thank you for helping me make memories with my son. But until the next one, I'm Ryan Betson.
I'm Max Hooper.
And I'm Paul James.
And that was Marvel Spider-Man 2.
For the players.